this is going to be an introductory tutorial on AngularJS routing. While there are several ways or options to work with routing, we are going to specifically concentrate on URL-based AngularJS routing using ngRoute, which is available from Google. So first of all, we need to understand what exactly is routing. Routing is just another way to fetch some content dynamically as part of your application. And in general, what does it do? It does three things. The first thing is that you need to specify a location where it can fetch some content. Usually this location is specified in the form of some hashtag or hash URL. Once you specify a location, it is going to fetch some content from that location. And this content usually will be in the form of a view, Angular view, which contains some HTML. So this is important. From the location, once you fetch the content, this is going to be the new view or new content. So this content needs to be injected into your existing application. So your existing application will be already having some HTML. And just imagine you got new content from server or somewhere which needs to be injected or placed in some of the existing divs of your existing application. And that is where we'll be calling it as injecting into your current HTML or DOM. So you have three things, and all of these three things will be made available as part of routing, which means whenever you go to a route, that is to a particular location, you fetch some content, and after fetching some content, you are going to inject that content into your existing HTML at a particular location. And where is this routing used? So this routing is mainly used whenever you'd like to develop some single page applications. So in simple, they call it as SPAs. So whenever I call SPA, nothing but you are going to have something like decent size application where you are going to have a header with all the links and left side panel with several menu items. And the more you click on those particular items, the more content you are going to load dynamically in this body. So whenever you are having these kind of huge websites or very huge enterprise application to be developed using AngularJS, there are quite a few number of chances that you will be working with routing. And whenever I say mainly used with SPS, you are saying that you are going to divide your application into several logical parts, nothing but views. So each of those particular logical views will be loaded the moment you click on those particular links from your menu items, or probably based on the navigations you might be really doing as part of your workflows. So all of the contents or the views, whatever you are going to load dynamically, are loaded individually and at the same time independently. So one view might not be really knowing about the other view what you are going to load, but all of those views will be loaded dynamically as part of your workflows or based on your selection criteria, which is going to happen as part of your web application. And this is pretty important to understand. Whenever I call it as routing, you should understand that routing is not only available for AngularJS, it is available at both server side and also at the client side. So whenever I mention server side, it is really whenever you implement server side technologies like ASP.NET MVC or PHP or any other platform like Node.js or Express.js. So routing can be applied at the server level or at the client level. But our focus in this video will be at the client side, as because we are going to work only with AngularJS, and obviously AngularJS will be sitting at the client side. Next, how do we implement routing as part of your AngularJS? And as previously mentioned, routing in AngularJS means you are using client-side routing. So it has got nothing to do of any kind of implementations which might be happening at the server side. And there are several ways to achieve routing in AngularJS. And two of the famous ways or mostly used ways are using ngRoute directly from Google and UIRouter, which is just another famous library which is going to be used by several developers. So we can use either of these two, or you have several other routing packages or routing frameworks which can be used directly as part of your application by downloading from the respective open source URLs or websites. But just wanted to make sure that you really have several ways to achieve routing in AngularJS. And how do we work with ngRoute? So this video really focuses only on ngRoute. So I do not want to really concentrate much anything other than ngRoute at the moment. And what are all the steps to really have ngRoute to be implemented as part of our application? The first thing is that we need to include or download and refer the ngRoute module, which is usually available through AngularRoute.js. And this AngularRoute.js is a separate JavaScript file which is made available from Google APIs or Google websites, and that needs to be included. And whenever you are including that, it is important to make sure that it is always after Angular.js. So which means you will be already including Angular.js in your HTML file, and this statement, that is this particular script tag, needs to be always be made available after your Angular.js framework, which will be loaded in the previous script. Next, you have to use ngRoute as part of your module dependency. So which means you have to include that in your module specification. So in this case, I am specifying that I'm going to have a new module called app. However, my module app is going to be depending on another module called ngRoute. So that dependency needs to be made as part of your application before even you try to use ngRoute. And the next thing is that you need to configure your routes. So whenever I say configure your routes, especially you are saying that what location, not what URLs, what views are made available, and those views really are supposed to be linked with what controllers. So all of these specifications of those particular routes are nothing but configuration. And you can configure all of those routes using the service provider which is available as part of ngRoute module, which you are going to include using AngularJS, that is routeProvider. So this is an AngularJS service which will be made available automatically to your application the moment you specify ngRoute and at the same time you include your AngularJS. So you can see I am actually using routeProvider here, and using the routeProvider you are specifying the location, that is the URL. So at this URL, which means if the client really asks for this URL, I am saying that it has to go to this particular HTML in order to fetch the content, and once it fetches that content, it has to link up with a particular controller called message1. So you can specify whatever the controller you need. So this is a template which needs to work with this controller, and once it actually renders from both of these templates and the controllers, you are going to get the view out of it, and that view will be made available through ngView. So this is going to be the place where you are going to inject your content, whatever you are going to receive from this location. So using this location, you fetch the content, and that content is going to be massaged with all the scope and everything, whatever you mention as part of your controller. And once that HTML is ready, the rendering happens right inside whatever the HTML element you specify using ngView, and this will be made available as part of your main application, which specifies the body of your content, and that content is going to be dynamic based on your route, whatever you are going to specify. So you can have tons of routes here. This could be first message, second message, or third message, but every time you go to the respective route, we are going to fetch some content out of that new route, and that content is always going to be replacing the existing content, whatever you have in here. And that says that you can always have only one ngView in your application. You cannot have more than one ngView. So this ngView related element can always hold the dynamic content which is going to be loaded through any of the existing routes you specify as part of your routeProvider configuration. So let us jump into some code. Okay, I have a plain HTML here. So this is just nothing but ngApp, and I have some bootstrap, and I also have AngularJS mentioned here, and I am loading a01.js, which is right here. So right now I do not have anything other than just the module definition called app. So this is going to be a new module with no dependencies at the moment. And now you are saying that that particular ngApp is made available here, and I'm just specifying an app, and Once I press F5, you can see I should be able to get this. And of course, no routing, nothing is happening at the moment. So the first step to already have your particular routing is to actually include AngularRoute.js. And typically it is going to be made available with the same version whatever you have in place. So in this case I am going to say AngularRoute.js. So you can specify even min.js or whatever, or if you are familiar with npm packages, you can download in that way, or even Bower or whatever. In this case I just wanted to make it simple. All I'm doing is just after Angular.js I'm including Angular route. So in that way I can make sure that our particular Angular routing related the functionality is made available to our application. So that's the first step. And the second step, as I mentioned, you should always have that one to be made available as a dependency to your module. So in this case I had to specify ngRoute as a dependency to our application. And next you need to specify all the routing related configuration using routeProvider, and that you can specify using app.config. And as part of this config, I would like to use routing provider. So that is, I had to say routeProvider. So this is the function which is going to be executed whenever you would like to have any kind of configuration to be happening, and that is with respect to routeProvider in this case. So as part of this, the first thing is that obviously I will be using this variable, that is routeProvider dot when you go to this location. So in this case I am going to say message. So what I'm specifying here is that whenever we go to this location called first message, and of course this location accepts an object with all the configuration necessary. So in this case what I'm saying is that whenever the user goes to this location called first message, I would like to have a particular message to be shown to the user. So in this case I can just say template and load this template. So all I'm going to say is strong, and you can specify whatever the HTML you would like to have. So in this case I'm going to say this is first message. So that is the simplest template I have in place. So this template is going to be automatically compiled by Angular.js and given with the result, which is going to be pure HTML, and gets rendered as part of the ngView what we are going to define. So in general, this location gives this content. So that is the end of it. And once this is configured, the next thing is that we need to go back here and make sure that we have an ngView specified here, as because this content, whatever we are going to get dynamically, needs to be always injected at some location. So in this case I would like to use a div with a special specification called ngView. So that is pretty important. So if you do not have that, it is not going to work. So this dynamic content, whenever you go to this first message, that location related information, that is this content, is going to be injected right here. So let us see if this is working fine. So I go back here and I go in here and press F5. And of course I did not really go to that location. So in order to go to that location, that is whatever the location I specify here, that is first message, I need to go to that location. So how do I go there? So I specify hash, and you can just specify first message. So this is exactly going to be the same route whatever you are specifying there. So whatever the route you specify here, that has to match whatever you are writing here. So you can also use a hash here, doesn't matter whatever you put in place. So the moment you press enter, now you can see I got the template out of it. So this is as simple as that. So this message, this is first message, is actually the template. So again, let me remove everything and I refresh this. And let me go to inspect. I go to body, and now you can see I have just an app, and I have ngView with no content literally. But the moment I specify hash and go to that location, you can see I got some content. So how did I get this content? You can see it actually went through our ngView and inside the ngView you have your template, whatever you have specified as part of your route configuration, and it has already fetched that information and injected right here. Can we have other routes? Yes, of course. So let me configure another route, and in this case I would like to call this one a second message, and let me make this one a second message here, and I just specify second message. So I go in here, let me remove everything from here. So this is my A01, and you can see there is no content available for the ngView at the moment, but the moment I say hash first message, you are going to see only one ngView with that content of first message, and the moment I say second message now, you should be able to see again you are working with the same ngView, but the content of that ngView has been replaced with the new message called this is second message. The previous message is gone. So the previous content of this ngView is already gone, and you can have only one ngView as part of your application. And of course, this is a very simplest application for the routing. So let us make it a bit more complicated. So which means I would like to have a new template URL to be specified and have some controllers to be bound to that template. So I'm going to create a new file called message1.html, and as part of this HTML, all I'm going to say is I'm going to have a div, and I'm going to say this is from message1 template, and I would like to have some binding to be happening here. So that is some value of A and some value of B to be displayed here. And similarly, I would like to have another. Okay, let me complete this message1 first. So I go back here, and now I would like to have this first message to be actually getting the information from this template called msg1html. So in order to accomplish that, you shouldn't use direct template, but instead you can just use templateUrl. So which means you are specifying that your template is available in some other page at this URL called message1.html. So these two should match. So once you specify that, essentially what you are saying is that this content is actually available in this message1, and that is what you are specifying here. And this has got some binding to be made, so which means it needs to have some content dynamically to be deduced from scope variables, and for that I need a controller. So I need to specify the controller specification also here, and I am going to say that template needs to be working with this controller called message1, for which I do not have it yet. So let me create a new controller, and I am going to call this controller with the same name as of message1. So I go to app.controller. So I'm just specifying a new controller called message1, and here I am going to specify the scope to which I need to work with, and at the same time I will be using the scope variable as part of this function. And as part of this message1, I'm using A and B, so it is expecting A and B from the scope variable. So I am going to say scope A is going to be 10 and scope B is going to be 20. So again, you are loading this, and it is linking with this message1. That is nothing but the controller, and the controller specifies the scope with these two members which will be bound to this one. So let us see if this is working fine. So I go back here, and let me go to the first thing. There you go. And now I go to hash with first message, and now you can see I have A and B which have been automatically retrieved from the scope and has been bound automatically as well. So instead of always going through this URL and making it, clicking on that one, probably we should have some kind of decent way of doing it. So which means I will be having an anchor tag here. The moment I click on it, it has to go and display this message. So for that purpose, I am going to actually have a simple anchor tag which actually goes to that route. So just to go in that way, all I'm going to say is just let me give a break tag here, and let me create an anchor tag. So this anchor tag is going to just say first, so which means that is the first message I would like to display. And whenever I click on this anchor tag, it has to go to this route, that is first message. So this is the route specification I am specifying here. So similarly, you can also specify another. So let me put another break here, and I would like to have the second message to be displayed, and I'm going to call this one as second. So let me see if it is working. So I go back here, press F5, and now you can see I have first and second. So let me go to network. Let me clear everything. So I go to refresh. You can see it has retrieved A01. Okay, let me clear this one also. So I just wanted to go to a01.html. So this is the home page. So once I go in there, you can see I have A01 with all the jQuery, Bootstrap, Angular routing, and Angular everything, and a01.js. So it is important to note that it did not load our message1.html yet. So if you go back to browser, message1.html is not available. So let me clear everything. So the moment I click on first, you can see it has loaded msg1.html using Ajax. So you can see the type is XHR, which means XML HTTP request object, which is nothing but an Ajax request. And that particular Ajax request, if you see, the response is this content. And it has retrieved this content dynamically whenever you go to this location. So this is the location. It fetched this content, and that content is going to be injected as part of your ngView, whatever you specified. And while it is trying to inject, prior to the injection, this content is actually bound to our controller and the scope. It knows how to have all the bindings to be made available, and it gets compiled, translated, and finally gets rendered as part of your ngView. And if you go back to your body, you are going to see your ngView with the content called A10 and B20. So this is how we have achieved routing along with controller and even the template URL. So let me take this one to the next level. So I clear everything and I click on second. So nothing has been actually retrieved. Again I click on first, and now you can see it is not really having any kind of network request. So again, let me do both of these two. So it doesn't do any kind of request anymore, because once we have loaded the template gets cached at the Angular.js level. So if that particular template is not available in the cache, then only it is going to have an Ajax request to be made to fetch that content of the template. And that is going to happen if and only if you are fetching it for the first time. So again, I remove this, I press enter. You can see I have all the request for those particular files except msg1.html. So I clear this. I go to second. Nothing here because it is not really loading anything from the external file. So no requests here. But the moment I go to first, you can see it has gone through a network request to load message1.html. Fine. I click on second, no request. I click on first, no request anymore. So the more you click on first here, you are not going to have the same request again. So let me clear it. So I go to second, first, second, first, second, first. No request being made because it has been already cached. Okay. So that is the simplest way on how we can achieve the routing, that through using a template URL in the controller. So let me make another criteria here. So which means I would like to specify a route. The route means the default view or default template what it has to show. So I can also specify something like this is default message. So I go back here. I just open this. And you can see it has shown default message. Why? Because if you go to the elements, if you open it, you are going to see the ngView with default message, because you can see it has gone to the default route, that is slash. So slash means route. So if you do not specify any route location, then it is actually nothing but you are going to the route. So this is the route which is going to be the default, and this is going to hit if you are not specifying any of the existing routes. So what I'm saying is that if no existing routes really meet your criteria, and if you are at the root level, then always use this template. So this is just another way of doing things. And let us make our HTML much interesting. So that is, I would would like to have some kind of SPA based template. So in order to achieve that, I will be using a couple of bootstrap classes so that we can have the header, left side panel, and the content on how we are trying to load. So let me clear whatever the stuff I have in place here. So let me remove everything. So the first thing, I would like to have some header. So for that, I'm going to have the div class equal to row, so which means I would like to have one row at the top and another row at the bottom. So I'm dividing screen into two rows, and the first row is going to have just header. So I'm going to take away all the space, and I would like to use well, so which actually gives me some kind of background, that is the default gray background, and I would like to specify header. So let us see if this is working. So go in here. So let me remove everything and I specify here. So header is not really displaying properly here. Let me go and see, and let me go to another div. Let me also specify other things before even I fix it. So I'm going to have column sm3, and I would like to use another well here. So this is supposed to be displaying in the same fashion. I don't know why, what I'm missing. So let me do it again here. So I use this. Yeah, there you go. So I have something crap going on there. So I have column sm12 well. So and at the same time column sm3 well. And I'm going to have some links. So this is going to be the left panel. So I'm going to have a couple of links here using ul. So li. So I'm going to have 3 links essentially for first message, second message, and third message. So I'm going to have a, so that is the anchor tag, which actually says href equals hash first message, and I'm going to say the caption as first. So I'm going to use the same thing here, except that this one actually goes to second, and this one should go to third, and this is second, and this is third. These are just the captions. So this is the left side panel. So I'm going to have the right side panel in the bottom. So that is the main content which is going to be displayed here. So in this case, I'm going to say call sm9, and I would like to have another val style equals probably I would like to have both panels at the bottom to be actually taking the entire height. So I would like to specify both panels at the bottom should be taking the entire height. And now this is where I am going to have the dynamic content, which is ngView. Okay, so let me go in here, press F5, and now you can see I have the header at the top, I have left panel and the right panel, and the right panel is actually showing the default message for us. Why? Because I'm already at the root. So if you don't specify the root here, for example, I just specify this, so which means there is no root available, so it will be just blank. So if you don't specify anything, it will be just blank. But if you would like to have something there, as I mentioned, just give even for the root as well. So for the root, now you can say I have default message. Now the moment I click on first, you can see I'm actually getting the information from this URL, and that new content is always placed right inside this content. Similarly, I go to second message. Do you have second message? I don't have second message, so that's the reason it has just provided nothing. So let me create another message. So I'm going to duplicate this file, and I'm going to call this one as message2.html, and I'm going to say this is message2 template, and I'm going to say get me from C and get me from D. So this is message2. So it works with a different scope and different controller in my case. So I would like to say a new route needs to be added, so that is going to be my second message, and I am going to call this one as second message. I would not need this, so I go to second message here, and it has to work with second controller, that is message2 controller, which I am going to duplicate, and I call this one as message2 controller with variables C and D with respect to values 30 and 40. So in that way I have second route which actually goes through this template and this controller, and see if this is working fine. So I go back here, press, okay, let me go to the route again. So that is to the home page, and I have the default message. And also let me go to the network. You can see I do not have any of my templates loaded. No message1.html, no message2.html. So let me clear everything. The moment I click on first, you can see it has loaded this template message1.html, which contains A and B. And the moment I click on second, you can see there is one more request through the network, which actually is responding with C and D with message2 template. And the third, currently there is nothing, so there is no request, it is empty. And again, let me clear this network. I click on first. You can see there are no more network requests because the templates have been already cached. So the more number of times you use it here, the more cache it is going to be using. So it is going to be in the same cache essentially. Okay, so if you really want to clear all these these white spaces and so on, of course we can really do that, as because that is currently available as part of well. I am using well from Bootstrap, so I can quickly add a new style to the well called well, and I can just say please remove bottom margin. So in that way it is going to remove this bottom margin, which is essentially nothing but the part of well. So in that way you can see I have a simple SPA looking website where I'm going to have header, left side panel, and the right side content, and the right side content is always going to load using views. Let me add a bit more. That is, imagine you are specifying something like fourth, and we know that it doesn't have it, so which means we did not specify any route configuration for this URL, and thus it is showing no view. Essentially there is no view to be loaded and the content is blank. So what I would like to do now is, whenever you go to a particular route which is not configured as part of your system, it has to always provide some kind of message to the user saying that, please click something from the left panel or something. And similarly even for the default. So if I am here, I do not want something like default message. I would like to have a better message saying that please click something from the left side. So for this one I can say click one of the links from left panel. So this is the default message what we are going to see once you are at the route. So click one of the panels. So now you can see it actually jumps all the way, but once you are at the home, you are still going to see that message. But my intention is that if you are going to specify some route which is not available in your configuration, it has to give me a better message here, or a simple template which says that this route is not available, or you are going to some page which is not available, please click on these links. So for that you have other option called otherwise. So otherwise is just another method in routeProvider which actually gets executed if none of these routes really meet the criteria of what the client is asking for. So which means if no route matches any of these, then it goes to otherwise. So in here I will be just using the same simple template but with a different message saying that something like no content available. Click one of the links from left panel, something like this. And let me refresh this. I go to first message. So okay, let me refresh this completely so that it loads from the beginning. I am here, so you can see it is here. I have first, second, and everything is working. So let me go to some route which is not available and not specified, and you can see it is actually displaying no content available. Click one of the links. So that is how you can configure your otherwise. Now let us go to the template third message. So if you see I have third message. So if I go in here, currently there is no route specified for the third message as well, and that's the reason we are having this message. So let me specify something for the third message as well. Okay, and now I have this one as third message, and I would like to have some default template to be specified for this one, just like the others. So I am going to say this one as third message. So no template to be loaded from the URL, it is just a plain message. So I go in here, I go to first, press refresh, and now I go to second and third, and now you can see I have third message which is automatically displayed. And I would like to have something different to be done for this one. So which means whenever I am in the third message, I would like to redirect to something else. So which means imagine you are defining the route but it has not been implemented, or for some reason you would like to reroute to an existing route. If that is the criteria you would like to accomplish, then you can specify a redirect to, and I can say something like second message or something. So that says that whenever you go to this route, just go to this route. You are redirecting this route to this new location. So that is still possible. So I go to first, let me refresh this. Now I go to third, but even though I clicked on third, it actually goes to the second. And again, so I go to first, I click on second, it still works. I go to first, works with no issues. The moment I click on third, it again automatically gets redirected to second. So that is just another way on how you can redirect from existing routes to new routes, or new routes to existing routes. And you can also have the redirect with a function. So I need to specify a redirect to. Okay, so as part of this function I can specify like, okay, based on a certain condition you can really route to a particular second message or first message or whatever. So in this case I do not have any conditions, but I would like to say something like alert, sorry, not implemented yet, will take you to first message now. So this is just a plain alert, and now I can say please go to this route called first message. So this is just another way of accomplishing things, which means you can redirect to a particular route based on some conditions you might be specifying here. So I do not have conditions at the moment, but we are going to see that later. But for now you can see that once I go to the third message, it is going to display alert, and then it is going to jump back to first message. So let us open here, go to the route, and now I click on third. You can say I have the message, sorry, not implemented. The moment I click on OK, you can see it has redirected to the first message. Whenever we have this first message, imagine I am specifying case sensitive criteria, like for example first. So now F is capital. I press enter. Now it says no content available because it did not recognize what is this. So the routes whatever you specify here are always case sensitive by default, but if you would like to have case insensitivity to be included, then I can say case insensitive match just for that route, case insensitive match true. And the moment I specify that, so let me refresh this, I go to first, obviously it should work, and I go with first character as F. So you can specify whatever case you mention here, it still works with no issues. So that is just another way of specifying case insensitivity as part of your routing configuration in your URL. So those are all the minimum things which we need to really start with routing in general. So in my upcoming videos we are going to go much in depth about how to pass parameters and working with route service and so on.